These laws started in the United States in 1998. The United States being a place where democracy had been thoroughly corrupted, where laws were for sale in Congress. But I'm sad to say that they have spread to other places as well. But there was an interesting court decision in Finland a few weeks ago. The court in Finland ruled that in the case of encrypted movies on DVD, the free software was so widely distributed that the encryption no longer qualifies as an effective method of stopping people from copying, and therefore the free software is legal. Now that's a very interesting interpretation, which I'm sure the mega corporations will try to eliminate. They will try appealing this decision. They will try passing a different law. They'll try everything. People have to push for this solution to be adopted in other countries and then oppose changes in the law as a way of making it legal to distribute free software to watch a movie on a DVD. Of course, the reason why the megacorporations don't want this to be allowed is that the software, the officially authorized non-free software, implements digital restrictions management. They don't want you to be able to change the software because they've designed it to restrict you. Specifically, well, they've designed it to restrict you in many ways. If there is a terrifying notice at the beginning, they don't want you to be able to skip that. If there are commercials at the beginning, they don't want to let you skip that. And they also don't want to let you copy the movie. Although in most countries you probably have a legal right to copy at least a small part for certain purposes, but they don't care about that. Their use for law is only when it serves their purposes. They don't believe in respecting it when it serves anyone else's purposes. This is one of the laws that forbids certain kinds of free software, and it's rather narrow. It only applies to software to access encrypted media or encrypted websites. But even though that's a small fraction of all the jobs that software does, these are very important jobs. Millions of people want to watch DVDs on their computer, for instance. So even though this law is narrow, it still is very dangerous. But the other law that can forbid free software can affect any kind of software. That's patent law. The United States allows computational techniques and ideas to be patented. So an algorithm can be patented, an idea for a feature can be patented, an idea for a file format can be patented, an idea for a method of computing can be patented. And the result is that a large program is probably prohibited by hundreds of patents, because a large program combines thousands of different ideas, and each of those ideas might be patented or might not. Suppose only 10% of ideas are patented. Well, if the program combines thousands of ideas, that's hundreds of patents. Hundreds of patents, each of which prohibits the distribution or use of that program. Meaning that the developers of the program face hundreds of possible lawsuits. It's an absolutely crazy system, because it means that software developers can be sued by companies they've never heard of and have had no connection with. except that they implemented in a program an idea which that company has a patent on. Of course, around half the patents belong to megacorporations. So the megacorporations have thousands of patents, and they get to sue just about anyone they want, which is a really dangerous and nasty system. All software developers are in danger from this, because every software developer implementing a program is combining lots of ideas. So software patents threaten free software, they threaten proprietary software, and of course they threaten the bulk of software, which is custom software. But all software developers are threatened by software patents. It's a stupid system which the rest of the world should not imitate. But the megacorporations like it because they have half the patents and they cross-license each other, so they tend to get more benefit than harm from the system, at least so far. So they want to impose the system, and they use their pet government in Washington to help do it. The pressure on other countries to allow software patents comes from the megacorporations and from Washington. But it's essential to resist this pressure. If you want there to be software, you don't want to set up a new way for software developers to get sued. Now, we in the free software movement care strongly about this because we are not just trying to have a few successful products. We're not doing this for success. We're working to liberate all the inhabitants of cyberspace. We have to be able to make software to do every job. Because if there's a job we can't do yet, that means people might use proprietary software in order to do that job. Everything that we don't have implemented in free software is a job we have to do. So we have to fight against laws that would forbid us to do certain jobs. And when there is a megacorporation that wants to destroy us, as Microsoft does, patents are a very convenient weapon to use. Microsoft is now implementing a new file format for Office 2007. And this format is patented. The patent is, I believe, on an idea that actually is trivial. So trivial that a well-run patent office would not issue a patent on it at all. But patent offices generally are badly run. And the reason is there are systemic pressures that make this likely. Patent offices today think of patent applicants as their customers, and they want to make their customers happy. The way you make customers happy is by saying yes, not by saying no. So the patent office has systematic reasons to extend the possibilities of patents and lower the standards as low as they can possibly imagine. So the fact that they're doing a bad job is not an accident. It's not because somebody made a stupid mistake. It's because they have interests which are served by doing things badly. So Microsoft offered a zero-price patent license for implementing that format. But the conditions of the license do not allow free software. It's permitted gratis for non-free software, but not permitted for free software. Isn't that fun? If you want to help in the fight to prevent software patents in Europe, look at the organization FFII, which has done great work in defending Europe from software patents for about 9 years. Today, there's no room for doubt about whether free software can provide the software that people need to use. We haven't yet developed everything people need. Maybe we've developed 1/10 of that. Well, that's still many orders of magnitude up from where we started. Now we have just maybe one more order of magnitude to go, and we'll have done the whole job. At this point, I don't think there's much more room for doubt that we can do the job. The question now is whether they will permit us to serve the public this way. And for that, we need to organize and fight. So you should join the Free Software Foundation at fsf.org, or join Free Software Foundation of Europe, fsfeurope.org. Join and send in your dues, because we need to be able to spend them on this fight. Go to defectivebydesign.org and join our protest campaign against DRM. We have over 20,000 members in this campaign, but we need more. We want to be able to have big protests around the world. We want them to be bigger and bigger. A couple of years ago, somebody at Disney said, if the consumers hear about digital restrictions management, then we're in trouble. Well, actually, he didn't call it restrictions, but that's what it is. Well, now, because of our campaign, people are hearing about it. And the proponents of these restrictions are starting to feel uncomfortable. A couple of months ago, somebody at, I think it's HBO, suggested that they should stop using the term DRM. That he wanted to call it DCE, for Digital Consumer Enablement, which I think is better described as digital chains for entertainment. Their idea, which is a very dangerous idea, is they want to tell the public, we're giving you this new opportunity to have convenience at the price of accepting chains. And they hope that people, in their hunger for convenience, will accept the chains. And a lot of people will. It's really dangerous, the strategy they're using. It can work to some extent unless we teach people to recognize that these chains are unjust. If people accept the way that the entertainment companies present the subject, they may go along. We have to teach people that there is another way to look at this. And for that, we need your help. Every user is entitled to these 4 freedoms in using software. But there are particular kinds of users for which it's more than just an entitlement, it's a duty. Consider government agencies, for instance. Government agencies do computing on behalf of the public. And every government agency has a responsibility to make sure that it has control over its own computing so that it can make sure that it does its job properly for the public interest. So it is illegitimate for any public agency to allow control of its computing to fall into the hands of any private party. And that means it is illegitimate for any public agency to use proprietary software. Because to use proprietary software is to give control of your computing to the developer. Public agencies must never do this. They must never use proprietary software. And it should be the goal of every nation, of every local government, every government at any level, to exclude proprietary software from its operations. And this should be a legally enforced policy. No proprietary software allowed. Now, since government agencies are already using proprietary software, already failing to carry out this responsibility, it will take them time to convert. That's understandable. I wouldn't suggest that they should have to convert in one day or even 1 year. It will take time to make the conversion, but laws should be adopted which will insist on this conversion, will insist on doing it in a fixed period of time, perhaps 5 years, so that it will be feasible. And we'll make sure that every year a big step is taken so that in 5 years they really have done the job. Leaving so soon? I hope it wasn't something I said. Now, there's another reason why agencies should do this, and that is, while every public agency has a specific job to do, the state as a whole has an overall mission, which is to protect the freedom and well-being of its citizens. So every public agency, while it works to carry out its own specific mission, should also be helping to carry out the overall mission of the state. By switching to free software, the agency can contribute to increasing the market for free software support, which means more companies will be started to provide free software support. And this means that whenever anybody else considers switching to free software, there will be more support providers around, and thus it will be easy for them to get the support they want also. Also, the state has a mission to promote freedom for its citizens. Well, when the state switches to free software, this will encourage citizens to switch and thus learn to live in freedom. However, even more important than the public agencies are the schools. The schools must use and teach exclusively free software. There are 4 reasons for this. The most superficial reason is to save money. That's an obvious reason. Schools don't have enough money, so they shouldn't waste their money paying for permission to run proprietary software. But because this reason is superficial, it can be eliminated. Some proprietary software companies donate gratis copies of their non-free software to schools. And why do they do this? Is it because they're idealistic and they want to encourage education? I don't think so. The reason is that they want to convert the schools into instruments to impose the addiction to their software, to impose a dependency on the students and thus on society as a whole. They want the schools to teach their students to use that particular proprietary software so that after they graduate, they will say, I only know how to use this proprietary software. They will have a dependency which could last their whole lives if they don't make the effort to stop, if they don't make the effort to switch. And you can be sure that the same companies will not give them gratis copies after they graduate. And especially, it will not give gratis copies to the companies that they go to work for after they graduate. So the idea is that the school imposes the dependency on its students, and the students graduate, and they become all of society, and thus all of society has this dependency. It's like giving the school an addictive drug to inject into the students so that they develop a dependency which is hard to throw off. The first dose is gratis, and after that you have to pay. Schools should not participate in this. Schools should refuse to teach their students this proprietary software. They should refuse to inject their students with this drug, because the schools have a social mission to teach the next generation to be capable and strong, good citizens of a free and independent society. So schools must teach their students to use free software and only free software. That's the only way they can avoid imposing dependency on behalf of companies. But there's a deeper reason, which is for the sake of computing education, programming education, to teach the best programmers to develop their skills. Some people are natural-born programmers, and at the age of 13 or so, they're fascinated with computing, and they want to learn everything about how the computer works and how the software works. So if they use a program, they want to know, how does this program work? But if the program is proprietary, then when the student asks the teacher, how does this work? The teacher has to say, I'm sorry, I don't know, because it's secret. And thus, education cannot begin. But if the program is free, the teacher can say, well, here's what I know, and if you want to learn more, here's the source code of this program. Read it, and you'll understand everything. And that kid is going to read it because he's fascinated and he wants to understand everything. And the teacher can say, if you find anything in there that's confusing, show it to me, and I'll figure it out and explain it to you, or we can figure it out together. This is very important because these natural-born programmers don't have to be taught to program. For them, how to program is obvious. But they do need to learn how to program well. The way you learn to write good code is by reading lots of code and writing lots of code. So when the student reads the source code of this program, every time he finds something he doesn't understand, he learns an important lesson. Don't write it that way. That's not clear. If even you can't figure it out, it must be really unclear. So don't write it that way. Well, there are lots of unclear ways to write software. So these students have to read lots of code and come across lots of things that are confusing at first, that are hard to make sense of, in order to learn not to do any of those things. With free software, these students can read the real, practical, large programs that they use, and they can learn what's good and what's bad in writing such programs. Proprietary software does not offer an opportunity for education. Further, the students can go from reading lots of code to writing lots of code. Most of the work in developing software is not writing new programs. Most of the work is changing old programs. So the students can read a real, practical, large, free program and then add a feature to it. Adding the feature may not be such a big job. So at a stage where this young programmer has not yet learned to write a large program, he can develop the skills necessary by writing small improvements in large programs. And once he's done that 100 times, he may have mastered the skill to the point where he could write a large program and do a good job. This is the way I learned to be a good programmer. I worked at a lab at MIT where we had a free software operating system, and my job was simply to improve the system in any way I could. So I kept reading parts of large programs and then writing changes in them, new improvements. Every day or every week, another improvement. And after years of this, I got to be good at it. Today, any school in Italy can offer the same opportunity, but only by running free software. But there's a deeper reason why schools must teach only free software. Because schools have to teach good citizenship. They're not just supposed to teach facts and techniques. Schools have to teach the spirit of goodwill, the habit of helping your neighbor. So every class should have a rule. Students, if you bring software to class, you may not keep it for yourself. You must share it with the rest of the class. And if you're not going to share it, it's not allowed here. But the school has to follow its own rule. It has to set a good example. Therefore, the school must bring only free software to class. The school should say, the software you're using here, you're welcome to copy it and take it home and then pass it on to your friends. And you are welcome to study how it works because this is a place for learning. And if you want to learn about software, we're all in favor of that. And even if you don't have an interest in learning about how software is written, at least you can learn to be a member of a free society in which people are free to cooperate and help each other. This is what schools must do. Every school, at every level, starting from elementary school up through the university, should teach and use only free software. And if you're a student in a school, you should campaign for that school to move to free software. And you should campaign for your city or your region or your country to adopt free software in the schools. There is no excuse for any jurisdiction to practice implanting dependency on proprietary software or to teach people that they're not allowed to share. So before I finish, I need some, there it is. Could you help me? Let's unzip it. Here. No, here. Okay. Here we are. I'd like to close by presenting my other identity. Sometimes people have accused me of having a holier-than-thou attitude. But I think that's not true. Because when I meet somebody who doesn't work hard to promote free software, I don't want to show that I'm better than he is. I want to convince him to become better like me. So I think I don't have a holier-than-thou attitude, but I do have a holy attitude because I'm a saint. I'm supposed to be holy. What's going on here? Something is not quite right. There. I am Saint Ignatius. Of the Church of Emacs. I bless your computer, my child. Emacs started out as a text editor, which became a way of life for many users because they could do all their work without ever exiting from Emacs. And then it became a church with the creation of the news group alt.religion.emacs. Today in the Church of Emacs, we have a great schism between two rival versions of Emacs. And we also have saints, but fortunately no gods. Instead of gods, we worship an editor. To be a member of the Church of Emacs, you must recite the Confession of the Faith. You must say, there is no system but GNU, and Linux is one of its kernels. The Church of Emacs has certain advantages compared with other churches I won't name, because to be a saint in the Church of Emacs does not require celibacy. So if you have been searching all your life for a church to be holy in, you might want to consider ours. But it does require living a life of moral purity. You must exorcise any proprietary operating systems that have possessed computers under your control, and then install a wholly free operating system where holy can be spelled more than one way, and then only install free software on top of that. If you make this vow and you live by it, then you too will be a saint, and you too may eventually have a halo if you can find one, because they don't make them anymore. Sometimes people ask me whether it is a sin in the Church of Emacs to use the other editor, VI. It's true that VI is the editor of the beast. But using a free version of VI is not a sin, it's a penance. And sometimes people ask me whether my Halo is really an old computer disk. This is no computer disk, this is my Halo. But it was a computer disk in a previous existence. So thank you.